Today I have Terrie Todd joining me. She is an author from Portage la Prairie. Thank you, Terrie, for taking the time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's great.
Absolutely. I'm very excited about this new book, and we want to let our listeners know what is Even If We Cry all about.
Even if we cry, I'll just hold it up here. That I guess that might be backwards, but uh, it's the story of the British guest children who came to Canada as evacuees during World War II. And it's something that I had stumbled across and thought, well, we didn't learn a lot about this in school, and it was fascinating. Some of the youngest children were only 5, leaving their parents behind, and ended up staying, you know, for the duration of the war, so 5 years really. And the experiences that they had here, I found a book that had a lot of them as adults telling their stories, and so I borrowed those stories and gave a lot of them to my characters.
You mentioned a little bit there about the inspiration behind it, but what really intrigued you about that and that situation, and what made you want to turn that now into your own story?
The potential for all the different emotions, you've got, and all the different angles. So in the book, I took the whole story is told from one character's point of view, and that's Nina, who's 14 when she comes over, and she has 2 younger siblings that she's responsible for. But each chapter begins and ends with a letter from other characters. So you've got the 2 little siblings, you've got the parents back at home, you've got the foster parents, you've got their children, who one of them in particular was not at all happy about these kids invading them. Some of those letters are from the Corb. Corb was the organization that arranged for these children to come across. So it stands for Child Overseas Reception Board. And some of the things that went back and forth, some miscommunication that happened, causing angst for the children and the parents, and all these things. So there's just so much potential for real drama, and I thought, it would be a good story to tell.
Thinking about communicating at that time, did they only have to wait for letters and a letter across the ocean? That must have taken a long time as
It
well.
Yes, exactly. And in wartime, you never knew when a ship was going to be sunk. So sometimes those letters didn't even make it. And in fact, as this book is part of a series of 2 that my publisher is releasing, so it's called the Even If series. So this is Even If We Cry. The next one coming out in a year is called Even If I Perish. Both stories stand alone, but they are both on this same theme. While I was researching this first one, I came across the story of one of these ships that was sunk by the Nazis, and a lot of those children perished. There were 6 that survived in a lifeboat for 8 days on the cold Atlantic, and the woman who looked after them, her name was Mary Cornish. And when I came across that story, I just thought, wow, this has got to be told. It's the closest I've ever come to telling a true story. I've fictionalized it, but kept it as true to the story as I could. And so she is the main character in Even If I Perish. And I follow the same pattern of everything's from her point of view, except these letters in every chapter. So I'm excited for that one as well.
Does faith play a role at all in any of in this book or the second book at all?
It certainly does. Nina, the main character in the first book, throughout her journey, she learns that she can ask for help. She feels like it's all on her shoulders, and she's got to take care of all these people around her. And slowly, gradually, she learns that she doesn't have to carry the whole weight of the world on her shoulders. And, the Bible teaches us that we need each other. Um, a 3-stranded rope isn't easily snapped. God made us to need each other, and He answers our prayers in the most unlikely ways. And that's what happens to Nina. Someone who she thinks is her enemy ends up solving some of her problems. And when you think about Christmas, you can see how God works that way. I mean, Israel was looking for a Messiah king, not for a newborn in a barn. And that's how God chose to do it. And I think there's so much for us to learn in that as well. Often our help comes from the least likely source.
It sounds like a really intriguing book, very powerful. How can people get a hold of it? And especially if they're local, how can they maybe meet you soon?
Well, if you can come to Portage la Prairie this Saturday, November 7th, we're having a come and go book launch at the Portage Library. It's from 11 to 2. You don't have to stay for 3 hours. Just come when you can. Parking is free. We're going to have snacks and some really great door prizes, and you don't have to buy anything to put your name in for a draw. We're also given a portion of the profits from that day to the Family Resource Center here in Portage, given the family theme of the books. So I'd love to see you there. And if you can't come, the book is available from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and at Hull's Bookstore in Winnipeg, and Heritage Books, Honeybee Health Food in Portage. The library will also be selling them, and I'm selling them out of my house. So there's lots of ways to get it. The ebook, of course, if you're into that, is still available for pre-order because it doesn't actually launch until December 5th. So you can get it at a little bit of a discount. If you order it today, it'll show up on your Kindle on the 5th.
Nice.
Not too
And that
far away.
actually that actually gives me a follow-up question too. I love how you mentioned you're giving a portion of the proceeds to Family Resource Center. Why offer this as well as an author to give to them?
I just believe in supporting local charities and local small businesses. So the prizes that I'm giving away are from local businesses, and this is a charity. I try to pick a different one with each book, and this one sort of fits my theme of this particular book, family, and they do a great work for families in our community. So
One last question. You, speaking of books, you continue to pump these out on a regular basis. It's like a new book every year, every couple of years. What makes you enjoy writing so much, and what keeps you going when it comes to writing?
I'm trying to get one out every year. I'm not sure how long that will continue, but as long as God gives me stories, I guess I will keep doing it. Lately, my theme seems to be even if, with these two books, even if. And as we look back over the last 5 years, I think a lot of Christians, I know I've certainly found in my life, I've known my share of faith shaking hard times. And um, one day I was riding down the street in my car listening to CHVN, and that song came on, Even If by Ren Collective. It just really resonated with me because it encourages us to find a way to keep praising God from the bottom of our broken hearts, even if so many things go wrong and they don't seem to make sense to us. And faith frequently feels like a big gamble. I mean, people wonder why. If what we believe is true, then why do we always have to keep pumping ourselves up and singing the songs and encouraging each other and all of that? And it's a valid question, but the only answer I can offer is the Bible's definition of faith, which in Hebrews 11, the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. That's it. And so even if the evidence isn't always there, we keep praising him, we keep trusting him for our futures, for our work. And this is the work he's given me to do right now, so I will do that to the best of my ability.
I love that.
Terrie, it's a great pleasure to be with you and to talk with you about this new book that sounds very inspiring. Thank you so much for taking the time today.